Good morning, everyone. Microphone check. Screen check. Looks like everything's working correctly here. Good. Welcome. Welcome back from the weekend. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up, get ready for the week ahead and all that fun stuff. As always, before we jump on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. I just want to take a second to give a shout out to our latest members that joined overnight and over the weekend. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the family here with SSFTG, whether it's on YouTube or on the main site. Awesome to have you on board. If you aren't a member of SSFTG or you haven't joined as part of the YouTube family, check the join button below the stream to gain access before the next private webinar, to get our access to the Discord chat, and of course you get that awesome badge next to your name here on YouTube, so you can show your support that way too. If you're trying to figure out what it is exactly that we're doing here, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. You can find that over on SSFTG. Comes packed with 19 plus hours of material loaded for you, and that doesn't include the hundreds of hours of everything else going on here on YouTube and all the other fun stuff. Please keep in mind that YouTube on this side, this broadcast tends to have between a 3 and 30 second delay. But if you want to level up to VIP status, you can enjoy exclusive permanent access to our non-delayed live analysis stream via Zoom, as well as monthly VIP webinars, excuse me, private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here and you're totally new or you're a veteran over on the VIP stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you here with me today. So let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news, see what's going on for today as we jump into all of the fun stuff. Don't forget to grab your excuse me, morning DP levels. Those are posted for you there this morning on the major 7 markets that we take a look at. So make sure you've got all of those updated. Along with that, as far as the news for today, hey, we have news. It's kind of atypical as of recently. Lately, we haven't been getting a whole lot of news, and if we do, it's like at the end of the week. So for today, we're coming into some news at 10 o'clock with the ISM Manufacturing PMI for April. It's forecasted at 65. And then later this afternoon at 14:20, we have Fed Chair Powell speaking. I'm not sure why specifically that time. Maybe it's just because it's after Williams, who's speaking at 14:10. But either way, we do actually have some news today. It all comes out at 10 o'clock basically, and then if you're trading in the afternoon at 14:20. Looking across the board here, starting off on the NASDAQ, realistically, we haven't, I mean, it hasn't really gone very far, has it? It's still just kind of stuck in a range. It's not really doing much of anything. I mean, obviously in the bigger picture, the bulls are still interested, right? But geez, look at this thing. It's a mess. So as it stands right now, seeing as the settlement is basically directly in the middle of it, and if we were to draw a volume cluster across all of this, it's almost a guarantee that it's directly in the middle of it. Let's see where this wants to pop up here. Ooh, okay. Not directly in the middle of it. That's interesting information. 13,960 seems to be that we've got ourselves a bit of accumulation going up into the 960s, and then they kind of give up above that. It's a lot of profit taking above that from the buy side. So it still seems like we're defending this 13,960, and although I I don't want to say bearish, especially with the NASDAQ when you look at it in the bigger picture, it's hard to want to be bullish here, right? It's kind of in the middle of the range. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's underneath the major POC of this entire range. That definitely causes some problems. I would much rather be farther down and try to find some value or breaking above that POC. That would add a lot of context. As it stands, though, well, right now, I guess the zones of interest would be the -1.5s. We've got the -0.5, 1, 1.5, and that's right back at the range lows. So that'd be the first zone of support. 13,740. I mean, you might as well approach it as basic as possible, right? +0.5, 1, 1.5. That's going to be the short zone, right around 14,000. Weird. So NASDAQ's going to be pretty straightforward today, although I'm going to have a little bit of trouble selling at the highs, admittedly. We'll see. Over on the S&P, continuing its way to the upside, but here, just like the NASDAQ, very sideways. The S&P does have the emphasis to the upside comparative to the NASDAQ in that it's been way more aggressively bullish, but still sideways at the moment, chopping around, and seems like they're just trying to find some value here. If we're looking at the top, they did not reverse to a new high, which completely unconfirms or unconfirms, breaks the V bottom that they were trying to get, rolled back down to a new low. And after that new low was hit, obviously there was a ton of stops down there, V bottom buyers, etc. Those things got gobbled up like they were going out of style. So, I mean, it hit that low and it never came back. So obviously buyers utilized that low to accumulate into. It did not trap underneath this major low, which is likely why it was such a nice little zone, because realistically they can buy underneath that low with a risk underneath the next low. I mean, it's microscopic. And if it works, I mean, the probability is terrible, right? You can't expect that type of trade to work very often, but when it does, man, this thing's gone like 10 to 1, 11, 12, 13 to 1. It's nuts. Crazy move back to the upside. And obviously the upside objective is going to be the volume cluster back at 4204. If the market can get above that, because remember, top-weighted POCs can be dangerous. Typically, they don't hold, right? It's not something that very often holds. And when it does, and it gains proof like a new low, although, yes, it did get gobbled up, they still were successful in stopping this V bottom from happening. So that's a lot of information. When it comes back up to this point, you better believe there's going to be a lot of resistance around 4204. So that is going to be a huge point of interest that I'm going to be paying attention to today. Let's mark that one up for sure. There we go. Over on gold. Ugh. that's probably the best. That's probably the best word for it, isn't it? Ugh. Gold not really doing a whole lot of anything. We've got a lot of sideways action. It's still super choppy. The last time they tried breaking above the 1790s to challenge those 1800s, total failure. They couldn't even make it up to 1800. Triple failure and rolled all the way back over. Came back, reconfirmed that area, and then dumped again. Now, what's interesting is after that dump, which is where you would expect a larger trend to potentially take place, it didn't. The sellers just got stuffed. They couldn't get the move going back to the downside, and the buyers held it off of those lows. So almost a guarantee that there are a lot of sellers who are stuck, and they are stuck in a real bad way. Chances are a lot of the POCs probably hovering back in price action here. That's not that hard to see. But if we go down to the lows, the initial drop response, I'm curious. How did they respond? Oh, cool. Perfect timing for my data to not work. Thanks, Ninja. All right, let's just go all the way to the end then, since that doesn't want to work correctly. Yeah, okay, so not really a shock, but 1767.8. All of that congestion inside of there. We've got the wedge. I mean, it's perfect, right? So as far as where this is at the moment, chances are a metric ton of sellers are stuck from that 67.8 and just hoping that this thing comes back. Just a little. Like, come back to like the positive half anywhere. It doesn't even have to come back to settlement. Just let them out with a little bit less damage, because so far they've just had their face drug across the floor and they haven't had a chance to get back up again. They've got to see if they can get that rotation back down towards those 67.8s. It'd be preferable before they break a new high above 89.9. If it does break above the new highs, that's fine. It can still rotate back, but it would be a lot more impressive to do it before the highs. It would be more, it'd be a lot safer if they did it after they broke the highs, though. That's that extra proof. Over on crude. Crude oil, wow, geez. Whoa. Giant reversal candle just showing up on crude here. We've got some nice bullishness to the upside. Bulls rallying higher, very aggressive momentum. As far as the reversal off the lows, technically L5, and L5s usually get that L2 pullback, and it couldn't do it. It was L1, 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 all the way up. What did they finally pull back to? Well, they did finally get the L2, but nobody showed up anymore. They're like, no, we missed it. I'm not going to buy this thing. I want the deeper pullback. They're starting to pick away at the L3s, and look at the responses on the L3s. I mean, this thing's no joke. Huge amount of support coming in here. Now, would I want to be a buyer at the top of this bull bar? I mean, it might be the only chance, but no, it's a little too far up. Maybe a retest, a quick inside snapback, something. It's just a little bit too far up for now, at least. If you look at the volume on this pullback, let's just go to the low. POC's bottom weighted too. Well, did they change it at all? They actually shifted the POC up a little bit. Sellers might be trying to get a move going, and they're getting further and further underwater if this bull candle keeps going. Sheesh. We might just have ourselves a sellers getting squeezed to the upside on crude. Nice little squeeze action, maybe. Over on the euro, nice pullback, finally. The euro finally pulling back in the bigger picture, and I mean, this thing has been a long time coming, that's for sure. That low was all the way back on the 31st, up to the highs. We've got, I mean, it's to the tick L2. Notably, it is also back to this previous area of congestion, and if we mark that zone up. Whoa, there's a lot of volume that's down. Hold on a second. When did they put that volume in? Oh, yeah, that's right. Ninja. God forbid I actually am able to use it. Okay. POC is in the middle, but there is a ton. Look at that volume spike. Would you look at that? Sheesh. A lot of defense when it came near it, too. So fairly obvious that buyers are still kind of interested, but I'm curious. As that continued on, the POC still staying dominantly weighted at the 204.20s. So if the market does want to rotate back realistically, although I would love to see it come back down to these lows in that volume node, makes a little bit more sense that if the buyers are going to try to reverse this up, which obviously, you know, challenge mode, hard mode enabled, this is not easy for them to do. They're going to need some higher lows pretty aggressively, and that would be the first of the batch to get it done. Zooming out a little bit and utilizing just a touch of common sense, this big move to the downside is pretty likely to at least not stop immediately. Probably going to see it churn back down again and get stuck here for a bit. Over on crypto, we've got Bitcoin rallying back up towards the 59,000s. Nice, almost a picture-perfect flag, huh? Just phenomenal looking flag, even ended in a bit of a wedge. Nice. I mean, very, very nice momentum to the upside. Now buyers are looking for continuation. We have broken a new high, trend continuation, higher high, higher low. It's doing what it needs to do for a trend. It has been for a while after that just disgusting NASDAQ-esque trap at the lows. Now rotating all the way back up. And if we look at the overall cycle, it's obviously getting a bit weaker. But that could just be because this move took everybody by surprise. It kind of FOMO'd them in because that pullback was only an L2. Next pullback was an L1. They're kind of climbing the ladder a little bit, but they've run out of rungs. So now that they've gone L2 to L1, usually that's where they slide back a little bit, unfortunately. And if that is the case, a deeper pullback would be an L3, closer to like the 53,000s. Bit of a bummer. Hopefully they can break up and through 60,000 and get away from here, and then we won't have to worry about that. Speaking of upside momentum, Ethereum. Jeez, oh Pete. Ethereum's over 3,000 now. It's just a matter of time. Like I've been saying for the last 3 years. It's just a matter of time. Ethereum will be bigger than Bitcoin. I don't know. I might be dead by the time that happens. But hey, I think Ethereum just brings a lot more to the table. Or at least the mentality of Ethereum, the blockchain that you can, create dApps on and all that fun stuff rather than just a currency. Not that granddaddy Bitcoin's going anywhere, but there's a lot more uses, and Ethereum is demonstrating that. They barely had any pullbacks. Like, look at all of the pullbacks on the way up after they got out of this congestion here, right? Once they got out of there, all of the major swing low pullbacks were aggressively defended, even some of the micro ones. Like, they just never pulled back. If we're looking at the major ones, though, that's one. All of those are really messy. That's a very obvious one. That's a very obvious one. Obvious. I mean, none of them. Not a single one. There's been some micro little traps, sure. But, I mean, that's it. So this thing is just incredibly bullish, which we already knew. That's not a surprise. But seeing this thing going all the way up, it needs a pullback. This is way overextended. We are in massive price exploration mode. We're breaking above 3,000s. We're at all-time highs, and it's not shy about breaking those highs. It's definitely aggressive. Is the squeeze over? Probably not. But does it need a pullback? Yeah, it could really use one. It's just a matter of when more than anything else. If we're looking at the lows, they did rotate off of an L4, so that is an applicable trend reversal. Since then, it was just L1, 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 L1 all the way up. So eventually an L2, at least. Right? L2. 2800s? It's not that much, really, but I mean, at least it'd be really nice to see the 2600s. But, it Might just be pipe dreams. We'll see. All right. Looking at the NASDAQ, I've got a slightly different layout with the main idea that the primary focus will be on the NASDAQ since it's had some pretty good movement. And a lot of this back and forth action has allowed both scalping and swings. So there's the micro options as well as or not specifically options, sorry, alternatives that are there. It's all the same chart, just slightly different layout. As we look at the daily, starting things off in the O zone and kind of seeing what are they doing up here, we're pulling back, right? I mean, we saw that massive failure at the previous all-time high retest. It did make a new all-time high, to be fair. But like we were talking about, as soon as that candle formed, the lows and highs of that candle are probably going to be support and resistance for quite a while. The next day, couldn't even get through it. It just got stuck inside. Now we're inside again. Keep in mind, what's actually happening here? Is this a pullback? Or is this more just sideways? Because if you're looking at an overall major trend continuation type move that happens in a range, this doesn't happen every time. But one of my favorite ones is where it's going sideways, sideways, sideways. And you get that one quick little poke down. And it's just off, right? That's the final rip. We haven't had anything like that. But any time that the market's just going sideways rather than actually pulling back, that's a really big clue. That's incredible amounts of bullishness supporting the market. It's still propping it up. And if we look at this from a daily perspective, this isn't really pulling back, at least not yet. This is still really sideways. And one of the best things that you can do when you're lining up those sideways areas is for it to just go sideways long enough to get that little dip down into a structure. Then you nail everything together, right? That's like the icing on the cake. And that's kind of what it's doing right now. We've just got a ways to go until something like that happens. And that would be the third. I don't think this works the way that you think it works. Hang on. Let's see here. This distance is 1 day. I know it's going to be more than that. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Let's take a look at a week. It's 5 days, 10 days, like 11 or 12 days that we've got to be sideways, which really sucks, to be fair. I don't want that to happen, but that would be phenomenal for swings. See if it wants to happen, I guess. Moving down into the 60-minute cliff and kind of seeing what's going on from this perspective. Overall, the obvious thing that's happening here is this, first off, bottom-weighted POC down here that the market is coming back to and attempting to try to defend at least a little bit. But when it came back down, remember, it came crashing down, just huge bear bars. The bulls still were able to close it above, but not long after gave it up, which I don't think is a surprise. If they did try buying into it, the fact that it closed back up, they're not going to let it slide back negative again if they're trying to buy that POC. It just didn't work. And you can see they were utilizing this area for a long time. Resistance, resistance. Well, guess what's up next, right? Right around the corner. And if we look, they've actually got another POC that's kind of hovering in the middle. So we've got this kind of hot pocket of resistance that the market's going to have to work through from the 920s to the 905s. And we're smack inside of it right now. Little bit of an awkward location, to say the least. But if we can break above this, get a decisive break above the 920s, get into the 30s maybe, 35s, 40s, and then pull back, very nice potential continuation. Right now, we're stuck in a sell zone. Looking at the cliff, on the hill, coming off of the cliff onto the hill, looking at the 15-minute, we've got that POC. I mean, it's the same spot. It hasn't really changed, but if we move this forward a little bit, since it did make a couple nice little higher lows inside there, you can see that the POC is still hovering around the 905s, and that's exactly what we're stuck on right now. So we've got to get above this a little bit. Would be nice to see a good break above, right? Even maybe break above this high. And I know it's going to feel massively late to the party if that happens. But then that big, huge reversal back down and then boom, all the way back up to the top. That would be incredible. Again, more on the swing perspective. We're still in the 15, but there's a lot of zones of interest here if the sellers fail. Looking at the Asian session or the Euro session, they're basically stacked, although the Euro is just a skosh higher than the Asian session, or the first session, whatever. Went over that last week, whatever session that is, the Australian, whatever. They're a little bit stacked, but predominantly going higher a little bit. I mean, technically, right? It is going higher, in a really gross way. I mean, it started off with a big move to the upside, all the way down to a new low, then reversed all the way up to a new high, then reversed all the way down to a new low, then reversed all the way up to not quite. Uh-oh. Ooh, man, could you imagine if they hold this down, how many people were waiting for targets above the highs that are going to be running for the hills if it starts pulling back a little too aggressively because the open's right around the corner. Again, we're in a sell zone. If we look at the move from the volume perspective, they started off the day from bottom to top with the majority of the volume at the 13,895s. It's like middle top weighted. Reverse back down to a new low. From that new low, created a bottom to middle weighted POC again, kind of like what they did over here. Reverse back up. Wow, jeez, what a herky-jerky move inside there. Anyway, 1338.50 was the middle weighted POC, and then chop back down again. Ooh, top-weighted POC. So things shifted a little bit here. You can see they weren't shy about buying below the lows there. But at the same time, we also have a top-weighted POC showing that they weren't really that shy about selling the highs anymore. Now that we're back, there's going to be a lot of sellers who are looking at that, trying to get that rotation down, which is my concern. Because if a lot of traders are looking for that rotation down, they'll try, then they'll fail, and then it will actually move, right? We've all been there. Everybody's usually early to the party on these types of moves. And the open certainly doesn't help at all. Looking from the bigger picture in terms of potential swings that are setting up, I mean, yeah. Gold from that top down to that low. Are we breaking above it? I'm assuming it's probably around the 80s, right? Yeah. Yeah, to the tick. So we are healthily breaking above from that perspective. And if we look at this from the longer term, we already know that that was that quick little range poke underneath the bottom. This is actually what we were just talking about earlier. We go sideways, sideways, sideways. Whoop! Trap them all out. Guess where it's wanting to go. I love it when you find an example right after you were just talking about. It's perfect. I don't want to buy way the heck up here, though. I would prefer to buy a little bit of a pullback. 1780.1 would be the zone of interest. And that would be for that rotation back to the upside. We do also have the volume support back at the 76.8s. As far as risk tolerances go, realistically, a lot of sellers aren't going to want to see it break down much past like half. So, like the 75s or so. See if gold wants to pull back. Even if they break the highs, I'm still fine with 80. And crude oil... I mean, like we were talking about, we already know that they trapped a lot of these sellers out. If that is the case, and the sellers just got stuck on this short and it just ripped their faces off, a lot of them, including the buyers who've been accumulating this whole way down, their average is at 64. Chances are they're going to want to be buyers on any dips that happen here. It would be nice to see... I wish that would line up just a little bit better. It's inside the L2. If we can get crude oil to move up to at least the bottom of L1, then I would like it at 64. We've just got to separate away from here a little bit. The key, though, is that we've got to get up here first. Let's see if they can make that happen. From the Euro perspective, I mean, they are bouncing incredibly well off that 204.20, aren't they? That's also a to-the-tick bounce off of the L2. This is the deeper pullback in the continuation trend. I like everything about that. Normally, because of the euro being what is it? They split it in half, so it's 625 a tick now. It used to be 1250. I'm going to keep it a little bit smaller because I would like to see if they can give me that dip back down for a quick little test of L2. I know, I'm being greedy, and chances are I'm probably not going to get it. I know how it works, but I would love to see that 20230 area for the swing buyers to be able to pick this zone up. Because again, remember what you're talking about, common sense would dictate that we're probably going to chop this area for a little while. I'm not expecting right now to be the bottom. That would be very assumptive. Not that it can't be, but markets don't like doing that quick reversal stuff. It takes them a second. So a quick little pullback would make a lot of sense. I just don't think it makes sense to top weight my average too much. Break points would be if it starts getting down towards the lows of the L2. The S&P and the NASDAQ are both in a little bit of a messy spot here. We need more info there. We've got a couple zones at least. We'll see. Got the open right around the corner here in 2 minutes, 9:28. It's a big pulse in volume usually. Yeah, that candle just showed up out of nowhere. So there you go. From the 500 tick perspective, zooming in a little bit. Or out a little bit, depending on which way you want to think about it. We're still kind of inside this area here. Whew. And the MACD is saying, take warning. Be careful. I have teeth. It's showing you them, actually. Look at them all. I was just listening to a band that had an album cover that looks similar to that. Yes, I'm looking for it. Hey, welcome, welcome. Got about a half a minute until the open. Oh, I'm so happy they did this. Total side note, right before the open, one of the bands that I've been listening to more recently, Somewhere to Call Home, real heavy. But they redid a Korn song right now. Really cool. For you metalheads out there. Anyway, open in 15. NASDAQ still in the zone of resistance. If they're going to break it, they've got to break above. Oh, right at 9:30, they made like, what, a 2-tick new high? Oof. Buyers are going to be looking for a little bit of a deeper pullback. From this perspective, we've only got an L2. I mean, well, I guess technically down there was an L5. Oy. L5, L1, L2. Didn't even hit anything. Almost an L2, not quite. L1, L1. I would love to see that deeper dip to the 891s, but we're in a sell zone right now. I don't want to be a buyer right now. Is there a way to share? I don't know. That's a good question. Is there a way to share playlists? There should be, right? On Spotify. I made a Spotify playlist called Face Melters. I don't know if it's something I can share or not. Oh yeah, share. Hey. There you go. There's some music to get you going. Not for the faint of heart. Bulls trying to hold the low side of this. Remember, we are deep in a red zone right now. Sellers trying to push back. Market's just kind of hovering. There's not really much happening. Kind of slow. If I remember correctly, in a couple countries, I think today was a holiday. Although it was, I think it was like New Zealand, and so how much of an impact it's going to have on the U.S. markets? Probably not a ton, but, you know, it's there. Got to get that little bit of a deeper pullback down to those L2s. That's where buyers are going to want to show some interest. We've already got the heads up. We've got a major undertow definitely suggesting deeper pullback anyway. The only problem is they haven't been able to break above the resistance zone. Sellers will be looking to sell this area more on the option side of things, just because of this major zone. I mean, they tried to get above it and totally failed. So once they failed back down again, sellers are going to be looking to reject this from a larger perspective. Again, more of an option side. This is a major sell zone. That's why it's highlighted in a big red box. Ooh, I love this quick little pop up. $375s of volume nodes. Scalpers will be looking to play ball at around those 375s. They missed it by like a tick. 2. I want to see what they do at 375. That is the zone for sellers to be pushing back from. Jeez. I'm going to look for a short out of this area to try to pressure the market back. Now they're climbing up. There's the big push. Big dump back down. Initial objectives down, looking for a continuation back below these 375s. If they fail to hold it, though, that's a problem. They got to close underneath that 375 on this candle. Whoo, there we go. Keep going. 375 still the zone of resistance. The majority of the position so far has been break even, so this last one I've got to be a bit picky about. There we go. Beautiful. Good. Right there. Right back down to the low volume cluster at the swing lows. Whoo! Lordy. I dumped the first 3 relatively quickly because of the fact that it closed back above that node. Remember, the way that I wanted this to respond was like this. I wanted a wick and just gone. Although, if you combine those 2 candles together, a little bit of candle math, there is a wick, which is why I still stayed short. But I didn't want to stay short the entirety of the position. It wasn't worth the risk of it jerking back up again. Especially noting that 375 was so delicate. Remember, don't get stuck in hindsight. Shoulda, couldas. Shoulda, couldas don't pay anything. That hindsight account, real easy to make that bad boy get real big. Hindsight account's got to be in the trillions by now, right? Beautiful continuation back down. MACD gave a huge heads up that that was coming, and then we saw the volume shift. I mean, like everything that you needed on that, they just did it a little herky-jerky there because of probably because of the open volume, but all right, let's take a look at the first 5. What kind of volume are you sporting? These are some chubby candles. Let's get that a little down here. There we go. Now I can see where these are. 75. 375 is the first volume node. All right, get these looking a bit healthier again. There we go. Side note, actually, while I'm thinking about it, because I have had that question come up before, why do I have my candles so thick? The reason I like the candles to be that thick is because it demonstrates and displays structure a lot more visually easy, for me at least. I can see structure a lot better when the candles are like this and zoomed out a little bit. It just makes it more visually obvious. Personal preference, I guess, but this is that big flush down. Remember, watch this area. Remember that low-weighted POC down here? The shorts and the options on the open have been rewarded very, very well. Hold on. The shorts and the options at the open have been rewarded very, very well. Now we're down into an area where buyers will begin picking away. It's still super, super early. But shorts will at least be taking profit back into settlement. We are also back down towards some of those volume nodes. And notably, the POC is still down here. So that's the objective right now for the shorts. For the major, like, all-time, let's get this thing to run target. If they can break through that, ooh, that's spicy. We are breaking through. Now, this next area here in the 55s, this is another big area where options will be looking to take profit on this down move. Yeah, there they go. A little bit more profit taking. This is confirming an L5 on the low. So far. Remember, so far this has been a range, and volume when it shows up in the middle has done nothing to help anybody. The only time it's helped anybody is if it's been at the highs or lows. Bounced off the VWAP to the tick, did it? It's only been 10 minutes since the open. I feel like we ran a marathon already. Bottom weighted. Whoo, look at that volume that came in down there at the 860s. They did not shift the POC down. MACD is still heavily crossed down. Although the short term is up. Looking on the faster to gauge a bit more structure. Possible two-legged correction back. Heavily separating away, whatever English that was, heavily separating away from the average cluster, usually more indicative of a pullback. And the farther away from the cluster it gets, the more likely it is of a pullback. Doesn't mean the sellers won't keep selling, though, obviously. Don't let that impede a short. Bottom-weighted POC. Uh-oh. 13,860s, bottom-weighted POC. Shorts on the put side, if they were taking those options to the downside, are going to be lightening the load a little bit more if they can't get back below that 860s. If they are still short, it's got to get back below the 860s. Break-evens for the majority of them, given time decay. I mean, it's Monday, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of it. It's going to be back at like the 90s, 95s. But I think the majority of shorts have exited their positions. Anything else happening? Not yet. Ooh, now crude oil. There we go. Thanks, crude. That's what we wanted. 64. Perfect. Now let's see if it wants to pull back. I like 64. I'm good with that. Very heavily bottom-weighted POC. Still haven't made it down to that ultimate objective. It's back at those 850s, but it just feels like they couldn't get the job done, really. No. There we go. Sellers attempting to push back down a little bit more again. Remember, though, we bottom weighted the POC. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of traders potentially bought into that low. The initial reaction wasn't enough, but after that quick little higher low, it was. Buyers want to see that low-weighted POC hold as support again. UK and China is the May Day holiday. Yep. I knew it was... I thought there were a few other ones in there too, but either way. We can see that reflected in the volume. The volume's at just over 100K right now. So, just nothing really happened in the overnight. Buyers showing up down at those lows again. They're saying no. I don't wanna. Short-term MACD is crossed to the downside. Long-term MACD is still up, but both below zero at the moment. They're still trying to hold down. I mean, in every right to be trying to, at least. The majority of the POCs have slid a little bit under, but man, the way that this is setting up, oof, that's tough. And the fact that this made the new high above 16 quarter. I know it doesn't seem like it's that much, but that new high is a big deal. Especially considering before that it went new high, new low, new high, new low. It did make a new high again. It got the job done. So you can see sellers are trying to get this move to keep going down. They've got to break through this near-term volume. That's a... Ooh, okay. They're trying to hit the gas pedal through it. Let's drag this forward a little bit. POC's actually shifted 865 down here. Uh-oh. It's holding it as resistance. Sellers are going to be looking for a continuation pulse on this move, looking for a short move down through the lows. There's the break. Beauty. Whoo! Got him. They just got to get below that 865. I was only able to grab one, but multiples, next objective, massive target, 850s. This is the shorts target. This is the puts target. This is everybody's target down here into the 850s. Big zone of interest. So far, sellers still holding the market down, attempting to get more continuation, although they haven't broken through the lows. They've gotten to 51. See if they can keep it going or not. Sellers continuing the drive to the downside. A retest of the 65s would likely find sellers there, but if it breaks through it quickly, remember, it's bouncing off of a support zone right now. That would not be good. Especially considering that it hit and bounced off of 51. Oh, that's right. Micro Bitcoin futures are... I'm gonna have to take a look at those. I mean, I would still rather just trade on like Femex or something, but you know. Looking at Chili's, I was talking about Chili's CHZ in Discord yesterday, and I'm just... This continuation is really disappointing on CHZ, honestly. I'm just going to jump ship while the loss is small. Teeny tiny, in fact. It's just not worth the risk. If it's not going to break higher from here, then I don't really want it. Doge is up to over 40 cents. Oh, 39972 now. All right, now we broke above that 865 volume. We're back in business for the buyers. The sellers, that just told the sellers, you best watch out. The bulls just loaded. Looks like short-term sellers are heeding the warning. They're jumping out at break even. If their average is at 865, you can see the response there. Ooh, crypto's starting to pull back a little bit here. Ethereum's starting to dip. Ooh, we might be in for a spicy afternoon. I'm kind of excited. Rip their faces off. Ethereum, they need it. I need it. I need it more. I need it cheaper. Back to those 865s. Watch this zone because this is a really aggressive reversal off of the Euro session lows. Got my order flow volume encompassing MNQ 500. Basic candles on the POC is still 13905 and has not moved down. You've got your order flow volume. Oh, on the MNQ though. Gotcha. That's interesting. We were talking about that, I believe, on our on the last time, on how sometimes there's been some pretty big differences between the micro and the full. That's a huge difference. Sellers continuing to heed the warning. Now we've broken above the Euro session high, so they've been given a bit more proof. What ETH level is cheap to you? What ETH level is cheap to me? Well, I mean, the way that it's moving... Hang on. There's not anything happening. Oh, crude oil, thank you. Now pull back. Now pull back. Look at that rejection on the 15-minute. Totally getting sidetracked right now, but look at that rejection on the 15-minute zone. So you don't mess with them. As far as ETH goes for a point of interest, look at the S&P. I mean, it's getting close. The thing with the S&P, I mean, obviously they attempted to shift their POC right there, jeez. But 4204 is a big one. They've got to break that. Top-weighted POCs scare the crap out of me. I do not like those at all. When I have a top-weighted POC, that generally demonstrates that the sellers dominated it. And so when it comes back to that area, I don't want to be the first one of the party. I would rather let the sellers try and then break above and then use it as support. as far as buying, which means that we're going to have to buy even higher. But I think it's just a safer bet at the moment. In terms of the current price action, it's smack at the top of all of this resistance. Man, I would rather see it dip back here at least. Give a nice little retest, break-even test, trap low, close the gap, something like that. That would be a lot nicer. Where it is now is just tough. Aside from that, there's not really anything else going on. Oh, hang on. 1865, NASDAQ, we're coming back. Ooh, that's a sensitive one. I still don't think they're done working it out of this area, but you can definitely tell what's going on here. Anyway, as far as Ethereum goes, for cheap, when I'm talking cheap, I don't want like an hourly pullback or a 4-hour pullback. 4-hour might be gauging a little bit better just, you know, because you're starting to get way out there. But the last time that we've had any type of pullback of substance, that is, when you're looking at the top of Ethereum to the bottom of the last one is 36.8%. We go to the next one. That pullback was 23%. That pullback was 20%. So we're seeing these pullbacks are getting progressively smaller, which I don't like. That makes me nervous. What I would like to see, though, and what these exponentially smaller pullbacks allow for, is a double down value play. Meaning that you take this to the top and you look for a double down projection off of wherever the high happens to be. So I'll just use the high right now, 3204-ish. Then you would look for 20.5 times 2. So 41% pullback would be the value pullback of major interest. So if you want to know where I think cheap is, 1800s, 1900s. I want this thing to get absolutely massacred so I can buy it. Not to sound vindictive or anything, but it needs a value pullback. This has just gone way too high for me to want to buy it. It's got to pull back at least 20%. I'm not buying them unless it's below 20%, but this thing's got to get absolutely ripped for me to like hit any type of gas pedal. Volume further shifted on the NASDAQ, further demonstrating 13,865. Let me take a look here. I don't think this one is not color linked. S&P is screaming right now. The first 5, 935 would be this guy right there. 9650 as well, so they broke above it. I mean, you can see they were playing back and forth. They put in or attempted to put in a lot of resistance there, and then it's separated. And this is a really big clue. This is something you don't get to see very often on the S&P, just because it's such a thick market. There's so much volume in the S&P. But here you can see where there's a very clear and obvious separation. Right there was the top of that last bull bar, and right there was the bottom of that next bull bar. And they totally separated above what? The volume node. That's basically like, instead of knocking on the door, they knocked on the door just for enough time for them to look through the peephole and then just blasted the door open. I mean, they just didn't have a chance. Just screamed through it. That's an incredible amount of strength that's being demonstrated there. So even if you weren't using like volume or order flow or anything like that, just seeing that candle separate away like that just above the first 5 minute, I mean, that's huge. They gapped above that double top. There's so much that happened there. It's nuts. So if they get a dip back down to the 9650s, you better believe scalpers at least are going to be looking. They tried to go short. They tried. I'll give you that. It didn't work, but they tried. Do you think that would be a devastating blow for Ethereum if something like that were to happen? No. I mean, there's no difference than Bitcoin going to, you know, I mean, how high did that thing actually go before it finally pulled back to 3,000? I mean, it went screaming higher and then just got obliterated. Now Bitcoin's at 60,000. So, I mean, no, I don't think so at all. I think that would finally allow a lot of buyers who have been waiting patiently to buy, that would give them the opportunity to buy. The thing is, I don't know if that's going to happen. That's just what I would like to happen, you know? Realistically, Ethereum's in price exploration mode. It's breaking all-time highs, and it's not doing it in a shy way. The last time we saw something like that, it went catatonic. From 700 to, like, what? Like 1,800 or 1,900 or something? Inside pullback, dipping back to the Euro session lows. See if they can get that dip back to those 865s. POC, I mean, even it just looks so nice. Quick little trap underneath the lows. It would look like the sellers are taking back over again. In reality, this is a bounce off of a major zone of support. It's right there. We did not break above that sell zone, which is obviously a problem. This current bull bar on the 15 helps. Another thing that you could do if you're not sure of what's happening is to check the intentions of the move up, right? See what's going on. The POC's back in the middle. So if shorts were shorting, they were likely shorting above that top. That could also explain a potential stop run too. Because, I mean, look at the VVP that happened right above it. Either way, a lot of orders hit at the highs, and if they were shorts, they got dumpstered. Not even a chance. So now that it's back, it's giving them a chance to get out of break even. Saying, hey, you know, we're back. News in 1 minute doesn't help. And put yourself in the shoes of the sellers who were selling there. They're now in profit with news right around the corner. What do you think they're going to do when it starts dipping back down to settlement where it's already demonstrated support? They're going to be pretty quick to pull the trigger, right? Like, I don't know. News might take this whole thing back. Do they want to risk it? Snapped right back to break even too. So anybody who put their stops at break even on that 77 got tapped out. Oi. Right now, I don't think there's enough strength for me to want to be a buyer at this juncture. There's just too much pressure. Buyers, I mean, they should have held above the 77s. That's a bit of a problem for me. And now we're seeing it slide a little bit further down. See if they can jump back above this low-weighted POC in the 65s. Now, this is an early move, and very early because this has a potential to blow off the lows. But some traders will be picking away longs here. Noting that we're coming off of a 60-minute zone of resistance that's holding, I have my reservations. S&P continuing to get slammed to the downside. Jeez. 9150 is going to be a big zone of support for buyers to try to pick this back up off the lows for a scalp. $91.50 on the low closes. That's not the right counter. Hang on, I've got the wrong tick counter here. Holy crap! No time. Nasdaq. Woo, lordy. Quick snap back up, immediately rejected back down. Now, that could be a sign that bulls who were long just got out, but that also demonstrates that this went right back underneath the POC and just screamed to the upside. That really shows that if sellers were moving into that area, right, on this move up, they were just thrown underwater. They're hoping it comes back to their break-evens at around like the 78s, 77s. 76s. Looking for this area in the 77s for a quick rejection back out now that sellers have been just completely dunked. A bull bar here is going to be a real problem for him, too. Only if it goes above it. That's where all their stop... Well, I mean, the majority of the stops will be above the high at 93.25, but there will be some short-term stops above that most recent bull bar. Trying to mitigate short-term loss. Bulls are trying to take it, looking for a continuation back to the upside for a scalp move, breakout above the highs. This would be sellers getting squeezed. There's that little squeeze back up. Beautiful. And got kind of a bad fill, though. When I hit ask, it jumped down. Well, not much I can do about that. That's what you have to deal with sometimes at jerky markets. I hit ask when it was the big bull bar, but it didn't happen until it pulled back, and... well, oh well. I would still love to see a pullback to 77. Not the most impressive long there after the bit of slippage, for lack of better words, whatever you want to call it. Human slippage. Let's go with that. $10 o'clock, top of the hour, is behind us. None of the swings so far have been taken. The S&P couldn't make it down to the low closes. I'm going to cancel that one. Now we've got some downward candle gapping suggesting that further movement lower is expected, so I don't want to be a buyer into that anymore. Bit too much risk. They're continuing to get squeezed. And the sellers are just underwater in a real bad way. Especially if it breaks another high. Can you hear my dog snoring? This is having a heck... It's got to get through these highs. Okay. Well, unfortunately for me, that also means I didn't get my pullback, but not for lack of trying. But we have made it through this area. Now we're getting closer to the highs of the range. This is the area where a lot of buyers who are buying this low are going to be taking profit. It's also the 5-minute first volume range at 375. Can't hear it over mine snoring, yeah. Tough life, right? Real tough life. Ooh, man, look at this volume. They're back up into this resistance zone, and the sellers now, I mean, look how many times they've tried. They tried, failed, tried, failed, tried, failed, tried, failed, tried, failed. If this goes higher, they're screwed. This is game over. The only saving grace that could potentially help them would be this massive cluster of opens and closes in here. If it goes up and then blam, gets smacked. It'd be the only thing that I could really see would be a trap above likely that high in the 960s. But they're just ripping this bear zone in half right now. Shorts continue to be stuck. And now they've been completely proven wrong. Just salt in the wound, right? I wanted 77. It went to 79 quarter. At least it wasn't like a one-tick miss, right? S&P popping back up, notably filling in that gap. All right, now they are up at these highs. Not in the 950s or anything, 960s. Yeah, I mean, that thing's been a mess. Just look at the price around the 960s, bracket the 40s to 60s, right? Look at the price action inside there. Oy. Do not touch here unless it gives you proof. NASDAQ has broken above the highs of resistance and is attempting to get its continuation back higher. Nothing happening on the swings. If anything, it's just getting further away. S&P still has not made it up to 4204, although that is the major zone of resistance. Bitcoin, ooh, man. If only this pullback was a little bit bigger. This is what I want to see in the big picture. This is a 15-minute. I want this to be like the daily. Big pullback. Not yet. Oh, that's perfect. Thanks. Yeah, Coinbase. Great. Let me try. I got to reload Coinbase real quick here. Not quite. That didn't help at all. Hang on. I'm trying to get my Coinbase data to work. Come on, EOS. Yes, there we go. A little bit of a flag going on here in the near term. Bulls could potentially be looking for another continuation pop. So far, this break above the highs has been relatively unconvincing. Actually, you know what? Might be even better, since it is a little bit slower. would like to find a way to have the S&P with a permanent spot on the screen. I'm just not sure how to make that work. Well, this is, I mean, this is a daily. That didn't help. Actually, you know what? That fits really well when you do it like that. I like it. There we go. Better. Bulls attempting to get more continuation back to the upside. This looks like it's barely an L1. Nice continuation back above. Further proof. S&P looks like a mess. Anytime it separates away from a previous candle, it usually goes about 2 points or so. 850, okay. 2.5. Why does it show up like that? Man, that's annoying. Big, heavy continuation breakout back above the highs. Got a new candle. It's an inside bar, though, so I would still rather see 2.5. Range fading the S&P because that's about all it's doing at the moment. Looking for 2-point offsets for now because that tends to be the average. NASDAQ is firmly breaking above the highs and adding even more proof. That little bull flag did come to fruition. If you look at the overall upswing, I mean, geez, you've got the 1, 2. They're working on the third deviation up. That put price objectives at like 959. Got the 600 after losing 400. Nice job. I mean, the losing 400 is just part of the game, and the 600 is part of the trading plan. That's how you make it all back, right? Good job. One thing that stands out pretty obviously here is these 1, 2, 3 peak highs and how very prominent they are. None of them giving divergence, by the way. So there is no undertow on this move higher. Further exemplifying that sellers are stuck. And now the 15-minute. Oh, man. Look at this 15-minute reversal. You can see. I mean, they tried so hard and now they're failing. If we can get this to back up into, I mean, anywhere inside of here, but the 905s or lower, that's where buyers are going to gobble this thing up like it's going out of style. It just depends on how it pulls back. So remember, we're in that zone. So if it just immediately V-tops and fails out of here, that's a problem. You might actually be able to, as a side note, like if it did it all in one candle, because it is an hourly, and it's the NASDAQ, if it did it all in one candle, like if it starts flushing all the way back down into that zone, into that POC, and there's still like 30, 40 minutes left on the candle, that's still plenty of time. NASDAQ can reverse hourly candles in 5 minutes. Just give it a half hour, it's plenty of time. S&P's just came so close. And now I've only got 30 seconds left on the S&P for this area. Given the bullish... Well, the range fade didn't work. Looking at the S&P... What other perspectives might they have to work with here? All right, well... 95.50... These are all higher lows all the way across from the weekend, which makes it super awkward. I guess the lowest point after the weekend would be down here, so... Got the L5 reversal, which is just now, actually, for the first time in a while, making higher closes and opens. We're in a range, right? If I'm a range buyer, where do I want to buy? Not L1. Not L2. I want to buy L4, L5. Got a long way to go. From the swing perspective, yeah. Big flush to the downside. They still have 9 minutes left on this 15-minute bar. This happened a little sooner than I wanted it to. I gotta prop this thing up. I'm kind of curious. Where's the POC on this most recent move? Oh, no. Oh. Uh-oh. All right, they just shifted it down. Okay, so buyers are trying to buy into this pullback. Typically, they buy in a little bit early. We've got the bottom-weighted POC for now. I would love to see if they can get back to those 20s. We are getting close to trading time as well, so feel free to get those questions in. We'll get those covered for you. And then as we move into training as well, depending on what happens here with this on the NASDAQ, I'm also going to look through some of the crypto markets to see if we can find some longer term setups again. I've had some decent movement so far. There we go. They're getting close. 920s. They might try to shoot into it a little bit because the Euro session high is under just by a bit. But that's going to be the major zone of interest. So far, it's gone to 20.5. Oh, mein Herz. Ow. No more salt in the wound, NASDAQ. Come on, man. Yep. All right. I'm going to cancel the NASDAQ. I missed it by 2 ticks. And I'm not about to get vindicted into a massive slide to the downside because I know how that works too. This is zone of support. I missed the bounce by 2 ticks. There's nothing I can do about it. We're late in the morning anyway. Good time to move into training. Majority of the trading session's pretty much done by now anyway. Really nice movement. So again, feel free to get those questions in. I'll get those covered for you. And then while we're doing that, or while I'm waiting for those, let's take a look at crypto and see what markets do we have that we can potentially work with here. Looks like we're green across the board except for Lumens and Comp. Lumens pulling back, but let's start at the top, work our way down. The 2 utility tokens, I don't usually analyze those because I'm just kind of a perma-bull on those. We'll start with AAVE. AAVE. Wow, big blow off on the highs. So now that we've got a bit more continuation, let's zoom in a bit closer to the 60. We've got a new week. We've got plenty of time. Nasty low on these. I hate lows that look like that. Those are really irritating to mess with. But we do have that base. The initial drive down. The majority of those sellers got stuck up at the highs. Actually, no. Look at the, again, taking a common sense approach with the assumption, I would assume that these are buyers. It's on the pullback. They built a POC low and it failed. And then they got dumpstered. All the way down to a low of 280.73. So, you know, just like a casual 50% drop, no big deal. Ouch. 42.6%. Oh man, that's vicious. So obviously value pullbacks are pretty deep on AAVE at the moment. And if we look at the overall drive that we've got going on here, I'm kind of curious. I know they bottom weighted the POC, but where did they do it? Down there at 359.55. So as far as the continuation goes to the upsides, I've got to use this low. Just a real bummer. But technically it's an L4 reversal. L4s are fine with L1s, which they got. And another. And another. So they're trying to get L1s along the way. If we're looking at it, we do have some divergence across the highs. It's a 3-press top. A lot of things suggesting that going for the next L1 would be a little bit problematic. L2 would make a lot more sense. So the 450s. I'd like to see in that area, does any volume line up down there? 459, some early volume. And a bit later, volume smack in the middle of the POC in the 440s. So definitely on AAVE, looking for the pullback to be a bit deeper in the 450s would be the hot spot. Big zone of interest there. ADA, I still wanted $1.20. It just refuses to pull back, so there's not really much that I want to change about that one. As far as Algo goes, they already had the breakout and the pullback. Really bad continuation, though. This continuation's kind of upsetting. It's not really getting a whole lot done. Lots of divergence across the top. I don't know. Might just need a deeper pullback. If we drag this a little bit further forward, a deeper pullback potential, at least. It's in the same spot. So they've kind of got to show up sooner than later here. On BAT, I still like $1.20. Although, as you can see, it will not give it to me. It refuses to give me $1.20. Not upset at all. So still waiting for that one. Bcash. Bitcoin Cash, I still want the pullback sub thousands. I want it back in the low 900s. That's where it makes a lot more sense for me. Up here, it's just tough. It's too expensive. BNB, I think, has been along since that earlier breakout that they did above the 540s, but that confirmation bounce and further confirmation with new highs. Everything is saying this should be an L1 trend that keeps going, and if it does pull back deeper, probably just going to be an L2. Bitcoin's getting a little bit of a pullback. If they really want to pull back with any substance, though, they're going to have to dip back to 55K. That's too big of a psychological level to leave it behind. We've got a 3-press top. There's divergence going across all three. We've got an undertow. It's telling us to expect a deeper pullback. I just don't want to be long here. On Chili's, terrible follow-through. And I again, earlier this morning we were talking about, I got rid of it. I didn't like the way it was looking. They've got to get back above these 56, 55 cent marks. Break back above, because right now they're having a heck of a time. Still demonstrating support off the 51, but where are they? Comp has gone explosively higher. This thing needs a pullback desperately. Man, if we can get a halfway decent pullback, even back to the 600s, just something. Doge is a lotto ticket. Keep that in mind. 31 cents, 27 cents. Those are the areas of interest on Doge. First off, that dot pullback that happened earlier was absolutely gorgeous off of 35.55. They've got continuation, but same thing we've been talking about. All these high moves have been kind of disappointing. No follow-through. Speaking of no follow-through, there's the NASDAQ not doing anything. ENJ, that's not great. They're resisting volume at 274. A breakdown to new low would be a massive problem. They still have top-weighted POC. They've got to break above that at least. Ethereum just never pulls back. We already talked about that one earlier. I want to pull back sub 2,000. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but on GERT, because that's the only way it should ever be pronounced, their major zone of support is hovering in the $1.56. But notably, we've got just a metric ton of structural resistance here. And it's having a hard time in the $70s. So, yes, we're seeing, breaks above volume, and the volume POC is a little bit lower if you add more price. I've got a really hard time in these $70s. We got to get back above it. So, GERT's going to have to wait. Litecoin, a little bit of a pullback still needed in the 263s. Again, kind of a gross little high, but higher low off of an L5. L2 would be next. So from the technical perspective, got the L5 leading into an L2. They didn't get it. So if they can finally get the L2, that would be the hot spot. At the moment, that's 256. We'll see if they can get that. Link still looks incredible. That's looked incredible since that shift down in the 36s. I don't really want to add more to that because I think it needs to stay long. If it does want to pull back, though, realistically, the 36.75s, 37s would be the zone of interest. It'd also be a nice kind of L2-ish zone. Mana's a dumpster fire. They've got to break back above this $1.46. They can't. They might just need a little bit of a deeper pullback to the $1.31s. That could just be all they're waiting for. On MKR, Maker, we've got that continuation of the upside, low-weighted POCs all the way across the board. Another continuation up into almost the 5700s. They just missed it by a little bit and pulling back a little bit further. If the market is going to pull back, did they do anything over here at least? 4800s. This thing's got to pull back like $1,000 at least. on Maker. I just can't be interested up here. Neo's up in the stratosphere. Oh, man. As far as the volume nodes go, I mean, realistically, the POC is just so far down in the 80s. I don't want to buy way up here. We need to drop at least 20-25%. PAX G. I don't know. I've been keeping an eye on PAX G just out of curiosity. I don't know if it's something I actually want to actively trade or even pay attention to. I don't even know if it plots volume, actually. Okay, it does. So on this move down, even with this higher low, pretty obvious on the PAX G side of things that 1750 is the major zone of support. Let's further refine, though. Yep, 1740. So as long as it's staying above 1740, buyers seem to be holding it. From the downside perspective, sellers will still be trying to get this to rotate lower. They've had moves all the way down, and they're trying to hold the L2 at the moment. You can see they have an argument. That's a really good rejection off of that L2. And given the weakness, we don't even need the indicators, but there's probably divergence. Yep, all the way across the highs. Suggesting deeper pullback. That doesn't mean the trend has to reverse. The deeper pullback would be fantastic down in the 40s. SNX, I think, has already been a long and is still a long. We've been talking about that one for a while off of that bounce in the 1690s. Still looking for that 23-24% move back up into above the 20s, closer to 21. Fantastic bounce off of the previous volume. Still waiting. Sushi. Sushi's there. It's doing what it needs to do. It's just not showing up to the party. A deeper pullback would be a little bit nicer at the 1330s. Otherwise, we've got a nice break above the 1425s. Would be nice to see a higher high. Something is proof. Falling resistance is not too far away, though. Tron. Oh, Tron. Oh, Tron. If we go from the top to the bottom, they have a very middle-weighted POC. Try it again. Smack in the middle, hovering around the 13-cent mark. They're trying to break above it right now. Super weak. Divergence all the way across the highs, telling us to expect a deeper pullback. If we look at the lows, we've got the pullback on the lows from the bottom up. We've got an L4, expecting an L1, which is okay. They did get an L1 initially. Then the next pullback was an L2. Then after that, back to an L1. So we had an L1 into an L2 and an L1. It would be nice to see that trend repeat back down into an L2. 12 cents. Right back at that POC cluster, too. And previous structural lows. Jeez. How many things you want to add to that 12-cent mark, huh? Great zone of interest on Tron. It's just got to pull back a little bit. Uni, I think, already had a fantastic bounce. It's pulling back on itself a little bit. Obviously, I mean, it's gone 4-1. You expect buyers to take profit up there at the new highs. If it does want to pull back a little bit, you'll likely see buyers defending the $40 mark again because it worked so well last time. Lumens breaking above the 50-cent mark, although the value would still be below 50. Not really interested beyond that. From the top to the bottom. Oh, no. Top-weighted POC back up at the 62-cent mark is going to make it hard. Ripple. Ripple's got a fantastic trap low. Wow. Now that's what you want to see. Remember what we were talking about earlier? Range, 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 range. Rip everybody's faces off. I'm kind of curious, does this line up with any type of structure? Does anything kind of set up with this? We might be hard-pressed to find some type of structure that lines up with it, though. Not really seeing much. Spike in channel? Oh! Oh, got it! Found it! Oh, man. That's rough. Lordy, lordy, lordy. All right, well, Ripple got that bounce off of the lows of the channel, although I got to be honest, that's not something I would buy. We've got to break above these highs. All of this would tell me to expect to blow off below the lows that we haven't had yet. I would still be happily waiting for $1.40. I don't know if we're going to get it. This looks like a beautiful range into a structural trap test. It's perfect. We'll see. Tezos. Same as the rest. Kind of a gross structure. Did they get a top-weighted POC? They're more in the middle. They're trying to fight over it right now. They just made another new high, though, so that adds a lot of emphasis. How much support's coming in there now. So that $5.60 mark, it's a nice area. If it can get below that, though, 525 looks a lot better. And then Wi-Fi going nuts. We finally broken above the volume cluster at the 59 or 49,000 area and have healthily broken away. If it does want to pull back, 49K will be another bounce area. Got a few things to keep our eyes on, at least. And all the while, NASDAQ didn't do a thing. Fair enough. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. And overall, the markets were pretty straightforward today. Got a little bit messy on that first rejection out of the zone, but quite a bit cleaner after that. And I think there's, although I don't know if they're actually going to pull back, there are still a few areas of swing interest long. Euro would be at 204.20 and 202.30, and then crude oil down at these 63.64s. Gold back at 1780.1. We'll see. That's going to do it. As per the usual, I hope you had a great day of trading. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Use two MACDs. Yeah, so the two MACDs, the first one is the slower one, which you've seen on my chart forever. That one's been on there for a long time. And you can draw that one a couple different ways. There's the 20, 40, and 9. And then there's also the slower one, which honestly gives you a very, very, very similar drawing. But the slower would be the Fibonacci one, which would be the 21, 51, or 55.8. They look almost identical. The faster one is 5.21.7, 5.21.8, 5.21.9. That could be 8.21. It could be faster. It can be slower. The secondary one is just to give you a little bit more of a in-the-moment pulse. I typically, to be fair, don't usually have it on the faster time frame. I just use the same template as my 125, which is where it usually is. So as far as the faster one in the 500, I mean, it's there and it's usable, but I like it on fast, right? Fast time frame, fast indicator. That's the mentality. Yeah, you too, Bill. Have a good one. Yeah, no problem. They're starting to get back below. So here the buyers tried, right? The sellers, they tried getting that reversal down. They were successful. Went back up above a new high. This is the buyer's chance to take it. And they just slid off the side of the mountain. So when it comes back, boop. Looking for it to reverse back down. So long as the volume stays the way it is. At least. But anyway, that's going to do it. Enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you had a great one. And we will see you all tomorrow morning, all right? We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.